Hey! Oh, you should never buy underwear from jockey.com, because if you do, they'll have your email and then they'll spam you for the rest of your life. And every day you'll get an email, 2 emails in the morning and like 2 in the evening. Hey, we got a deal on Jockey underwear. You want to buy some underwear? And the next email will say, hey, we got 75% off Jockey underwear. You should really buy some Jockey underwear. And later in the evening, you'll get another email that says, hey, you need some new Jockey underwear. We got a sale going on. Did you know that? Then it all repeats the very next day. Yeah, I know that was slightly off topic, but I thought it was funny, even if you didn't. So there. Nikon D500 versus Nikon D850. Nikon D850 prices used have come down substantially. Everybody's asking about what they should buy. Specifically, a lot of wildlife photographers or people that are doing sports action, wildlife, and photojournalism. And while the Nikon D850, I was the first person to say this, and a lot of people actually copied me when I said it. I said it's the best DSLR Nikon ever made. And of course the Nikon D5 and obviously the upcoming D6 will be better for hardcore sports action and wildlife. Well, actually not for wildlife, for croppability, because we actually got a higher pixel density on this. Basically it's for extremely low light, bad situations, war photography. It's obviously better weather sealed, even though of course it's obnoxiously expensive, and of course it'll be 3 times the price of a decent used Nikon D850, for example. But I've said that the D850 is a jack of all trades and the master of all trades. Like if you're doing product photography, basically anything, there's nothing that the Nikon D850 really isn't best at, unless we're talking, like I said, really hardcore. You're in action, your livelihood depends on getting the shot for photojournalism, depends on getting the shot for, not many war photographers out there anymore. I don't think there's any wars going on right now, at least not hot wars. There's always a war going on. What am I saying? Anyway, between the Nikon D500 and Nikon D850, specifically wildlife photographers, I got a couple Nikon D500s. The other one's filming my fat, ugly face right now. Since we're actually looking at the same autofocus modules, same coverage is what's important for sweeping, action, and bird photography. Nikon D500 is definitely more capable if you're a wildlife photographer than the Nikon D850 is. You have the same coverage on a full frame sensor as you do on the Nikon D500. This is obviously a newer sensor. It is a BSI sensor as far as low light performance. Is it really any better than the Nikon D500? And the answer is no. So you do have more coverage than the Nikon D500 on the sensor. As far as action making its way from left to right, which is what a lot of bird photographers are engaged in, the Nikon D500 is still a better camera than the Nikon D850 is. Yeah. Interestingly enough, people think, well, this is a 40 plus megapixel camera and the Nikon D500 is only 20 megapixels. Obviously this is better, but actually they have the same pixel density, even though they're completely different sensors. Like I said, it's a BSI sensor. Has a better SNR gain than the Nikon D500 does, but they both have the same pixel density. So far as taking a 500mm lens and cropping in on that speckle-breasted woodpecker that you took a shot of at 600 yards, right? The endangered yellow speckle-breasted woodpecker. You have the same amount of translational information per square area of sensor as you do on the Nikon D5. In other words, if the Nikon D500 sensor were scaled up, it would be the same megapixel count as the Nikon D850. So, which would you buy? Should you buy used or in new used condition? Or even new? Nikon D500's come down a lot. For wildlife photography and sports action, you're way better off. Unless you have all the money in the world, you're better off getting the Nikon. Even if you had, say, well, I got tons of Nikon glass, I need a new camera. I only do wildlife photography or sports action. Even if you had, more money than brains, you're still making a wiser choice from purchasing the Nikon D500 than you are from the Nikon D850. That's not my opinion. That's a fact. The autofocus area of coverage, since on this crop sensor, covers a lot more of the sensor than the Nikon D850 does. Yeah? That's actually important. when it comes to wildlife, sports, and action. Or the D850 is so far as, like, you know, say I was a wedding photographer. Well, there's just no question it's going to be the D850. If you're a product photographer, well, it's really either one of these. It actually depends on what size the product is, actually. But the Nikon D850, wedding photography, portraiture, you got, like me, several tilt-shift lenses for perspective control for either product photography or architecture or landscape. Obviously, it's a Nikon D850. So what would you rather buy? I mean, if you I got money for both, someone says. Well, I mean, what do you shoot? What's the budget and what you shoot? Well, I budget for either one. Okay, great. Well, what are you shooting? I could do architecture, portraiture, landscape, product photography. I need perspective control. Then it's obviously the Nikon D850. If it's just wildlife and sports action and general stuff, why waste your money? It's not money wasted if you got a D850. The point is what are you going to get the best bang of your buck out of? I said, once again, ending this video off, that had all the money in the world, and you say, and I just got an email yesterday about it, I'm going to do wildlife photography. This is a way better camera for that than the Nikon D850 is, because of sensor coverage. The BSI sensor, better gain. It's not really important on wildlife photography. Most wildlife photography is not done in dirty, gritty, ultra low light situations. Well, some of it is, but most of it is not. It's in well lit situations where you're not dealing with low light, high ISO issues. Still, the distinction between the two, even though the D850 is a BSI sensor, is negligible. One of my favorite words, negligible. So there we go. Here's the conclusions on the Nikon D500 versus the Nikon D850. Thank you so much for watching. And yeah, peace out, Girl Scout. Hope you like these videos. If you do, click the link below. Let me know if I could help you on anything. I get tons and tons of emails every day. I usually wake up and I look at my email and I go, oh my God, that's a lot of emails. Yes, sirree. Thank you so much. Peace out, Girl Scout. Bye.